Hey, Becoming Me. I am so excited to introduce you to my warrior friend, Megan. Megan, welcome to Becoming Me.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful to be here.
I'm grateful to have you. And this is really special for me because so many of our Becoming stories are friends from all across the country, and some I haven't even met in real life. And I've had the opportunity, the privilege, you and I know each other in real life. I call you, you are a warrior friend of mine. I've been able to interview you at Church of Hope, the Better Together story. I'm just inspired by you. I'm grateful to know you, to call you a friend. And then in the middle of crazy life seasons like hurricane season in Florida to roll up our sleeves together and make a difference. I love you. I'm thankful to have you here. And I can't wait for people to meet you today.
Well, I feel the same way about you, and hopefully we don't get any hurricanes this year, but
I know.
I am just grateful for Church of Hope, grateful for you and your heart, and just being able to just be out in the trenches and serve families and love our neighbors. And it's just feelings mutual.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's fun to have a warrior friend that you can be at a gala one day dressed in like ball gowns and us doing our hair, all the things. And then the next day we got our work gloves on and we're ready to go. So obviously people are watching and they're like, man, Emily knows Megan, loves Megan, they're warrior friends, and they might not know who you are yet. So take a moment and introduce yourself to a new warrior friend.
Yeah, so my name is Megan Rose. I'm the CEO of a nonprofit ministry called Better Together. I'm also married to my husband, Mason. This is 11 years for us, and we have four kids. My son, Brady, who's 9, and I have Ellie, who's 7, Emma, who's 5, and Ava, my youngest, who is 3. And we have just served as a family through the ministry that I run Better Together. We've had 26 kids in our home that we've had the opportunity to love on and care for. We've also been in a foster family and a non-relative family to a teenager. But just always have a heart for children and families. But that's just, yeah, a little bit of who I am. I love gardening, even though I'm not great at it. We love boating, Florida native, and just grateful for God's grace and redemption and that renewal every single day.
No, I love that. And I did not know you're into gardening. That's a new hobby of mine this year. That's
Yeah.
cool.
I'd say I'm not great at it. I do
Me
enjoy
neither.
it.
Yeah. No, I love it. I would love for you to take some time right now and unpack your story. What has made you who you are today?
Yeah, so I grew up in Florida, born in Orlando, and my parents really struggled. Life was hard. They were incredibly loving parents, but my dad ended up having an injury at work and he got addicted to opiates. And that addiction led to him losing his job and led to him coming home really drunk and really angry one night. And I was only 6 years old. I remember vividly my dad just like screaming at my mom in the kitchen. And it got to the point he got a shotgun out and cornered her. And I tucked my little brothers behind the couch where I knew it was safe. And I grabbed a baseball bat and I put myself in between my mom and my dad. And I just begged him to stop. And it was in that moment, I remember my dad's like eyes filled up with tears because my sober dad was a loving, incredible father. Got on his knees, like played with me. But in that moment, he was not who I knew. And I remember he left, and my mom was now in the situation where she knew it wasn't safe. She needed to leave, but she had 3 young children and she needed support. So the local church actually came alongside my family and they helped support us during our greatest time of need. They helped my mom and me and my little brothers relocate to Southwest Florida to go live with my grandma. And then they started mentoring and supporting my dad even when he ended up in prison. And when he got out of prison, they helped him find a job. And it was really hard because he had a criminal record. He had challenges with addiction, but that local church helped him find a pathway to employment. And that employment helped keep my dad clean, kept him sober, helped us start to heal as a family. And my parents ended up getting remarried. And our family was whole again. And I got to see just firsthand as a really young child just the importance of grace and redemption, neighbors helping neighbors. And I'm really grateful that the local church was the answer to my story, and I didn't have to experience the brokenness of foster care, being torn apart from my family. I got to experience the church being the local church, and seeing the best in people. And I got to see the beauty of just my dad coming full circle, my mom and my dad both coming to know the Lord, and that really just changing this whole generation for my family. So that's just a little bit of my story, and just how God, I believe, has just been shaping my heart ever since just a young child.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, the work that he is doing in and through you and your family story is incredible. Thank you for sharing that with us. Just you inspire and you encourage me every time I have the privilege of hearing your story. And, something about you that I actually don't know. I think I know, but I'm not sure. So we're about to find out. Are you a coffee drinker?
Yes.
Okay, I thought you were. How do you drink your coffee?
I just like black espresso. Sometimes I will add the foam and the, milk, but
Uh-huh.
I really enjoyed just black espresso.
I am with you for sure. So if you were enjoying just like that good cup of black espresso with another warrior friend, maybe you're sitting outside tropical Florida and you're just talking about life. They're sharing their becoming journey with you and you're talking, you're encouraging each other. What would you say to encourage them to become who God made them to be?
Great question. So I believe God, like nothing's accidental. I believe God can use the brokenness and the messiness of this world, and we all face challenges. And when I started Better Together, nobody knew my story.
Yeah.
And I, we had an event and it was just a few years in, and I just felt like God just put on my heart to share. And I started sharing, and it was just amazing how God used my story and my vulnerability, um, to be able to inspire and encourage other people to take action and support other families that were going in similar situations, help moms just like mine. And I think I would encourage, like, all of our stories are so different.
Mhm.
So when we are able to take, um, shine a light on what God has done in our stories and be vulnerable and share the good, um, the more challenging, like the peaks and the valleys, God uses that in a really powerful way. But oftentimes, like, I didn't know, like, my story, like, it's just a part of who I am. And I didn't even realize how powerful my story could be for inspiring people to take action, for inspiring people to come alongside families that are going through a really difficult time. And, we all have that story. And I think when we're able to just share that story, it opens up doors, and it can be incredibly powerful. And everybody's story looks so different. My story is very different than yours, but we all have these incredible journeys of what God's done in our lives. And I think the power of just being able to share that journey with others, and not, trusting God's going to use your story to help support them. And you just never know, like, what that's going to become and what's going to happen as a result. But sometimes it can just be hard being vulnerable and sharing. Um, and I'm just happy I had a person who was like, Megan, you need to share your story. And that, like, having his perspective and his encouragement, really just helped me kind of view my story a little differently.
Yeah. No, that's so powerful and encouraging. And I 100% agree. Like everyone's story matters. And when we choose to share who we are, I really believe it helps other people as they're becoming who God made them to be. And, I'm curious, you had that inciting incident in your story, in Better Together's story, where someone challenged you and you viewed your story differently and then shared it. For somebody who's watching and they're maybe where you were and they're like, oh, I don't know if I want to share. This feels a little scary. How would you encourage them to just take that step and share their story?
Um, so I think it's just important to know that like God's a part of our stories.
Mhm.
Um, and I think when we share, they're just, again, it like creates opportunities to connect with people. And the connectivity and the relationships that have come out of me being vulnerable and sharing my story.
Mhm.
And it's created pathways. I've talked to a lot of moms and dads through the ministry work that we do at Better Together that, they've been through some hard things and being able to share my story and what God's done in my life. And even being a mom with 4 kids, parenting is really hard. And there's a whole story in that too. But to be able to connect with people and then also be able to just take those stories and then share the gospel and share God's love and redemption, those stories create pathways to be able to do that. And I think it connects us on so many different levels because we are each uniquely made,
Mhm.
um, but we all have shared experiences. We feel happy, we feel sad, we have the same, we feel stress, anxiety. And the more that we can talk and encourage and support each other, it's just what I believe, God's plan for mankind. He wants us to live in community. He wants us to be authentic and share and encourage. Um, and sometimes you just never know what your story and, being vulnerable and sharing different parts of your life with people, what it can do for them, what it can do for their walk with the Lord, or how it can, point them to the gospel. And I think anytime you share, especially if you've been through something really hard, where maybe, my situation with my dad, like there was a shotgun. It was not a good situation, and Satan could have had a stronghold in our lives there. But because I was able to share, how God showed up and how, um, God's grace, redemption, and how God worked in that, shined a light in a dark situation. I believe God gets the glory out of that. And Satan no longer has victory in that situation. Like that is in the past. There's no longer victory there. Like God used that as a part of our story to get us to hear and like he has victory in that situation. So I think when you shine a light, it casts out the darkness.
Yeah,
Um,
drop the
God
mic.
can use, yeah,
Wow.
and God can use your stories in like just really powerful ways. And doesn't have to be like, my stories. It is. It's rough, and it's there's a lot going on there, but it doesn't have to be that extreme. Like God can use you no matter what stage of life you are, because we each have a purpose and a story that we can tell to help encourage and support and point people to the gospel.
So good. Like, I love how you highlighted connects us together, and then when you shine the light, like, there's no room for darkness to have a foothold there, and, like, ugh, drop the mic again. That was so powerful, so good. And, you've shared a little bit about Better Together, and I would love for you to unpack what Better Together is for those who are watching and maybe they're new to Better Together, and wanna learn more.
Yeah, so Better Together is based off of just my own personal experience and knowing that there's so many families in our community that are isolated, they're struggling, but believe the local church and God's people are the answer to a lot of these situations in the community where families are isolated, where they are losing hope, where they don't have anywhere to call. So at Better Together, we're on a mission to change that, where families that are struggling alone, we can help come alongside and support them, match them to a local church, volunteer family that can welcome their kids in short term while their parents work to get back on their feet, help mentor families, provide friendship and support and healthy community, and be able to help people find employment. And ultimately, all of those different ways we're helping families is pointing them to the hope that comes in Jesus. And it's creating those pathways to be able to connect with people, share the gospel, and get them on a different path. And so often, families, if they don't have that support, if they don't have someone come alongside them in these situations where they're in crisis, whether it's homelessness, it could be a job loss, it could just be a parent is overwhelmed, isolated, they chose life, and they have this newborn and they have nobody to support them. If we, the church, can just come alongside and support those families and get there first,
Mhm.
then the need for government intervention is less likely, that the church is more real and relevant and the government is less needed. There's less kids going in the foster care. There's less families being torn apart. So that's really the heart of Better Together, is to really empower local volunteers and churches to come alongside those families and support them, and disrupt foster care, because foster care isn't needed as much anymore because families are getting the support they need when they need it, just like mine. Because if it wasn't for that local church showing up in my family's life, in our time of crisis, in our time of just messiness, we very well could have ended up in foster care. And I worked in foster care. There's a critical need for it. It should be a last resort. But it's also just heartbreaking to see what it does to children and families, especially if the root cause is financial poverty, lack of community. And that's the area where we're really trying to change, is getting to those families first. So that's a little bit about Better Together. And it's a nonprofit here in Florida. We're in 54 counties. And it's just been really beautiful to see what God's done so far through this ministry. We've been able to help over 15,000 kids. And we've seen a decline in foster care. And we're continuing to see that decline, which is just incredible and a testament, of just like, this is God's story. Like, he's telling this incredible story through this ministry, and I just play a part in that. But it's this collective story of all these volunteers, churches who believe, and people and loving people. And I love being on this podcast and sharing this because I believe our volunteers, um, like, they're just like, they're warriors, and they get to share their
Yeah.
stories, and
Yeah.
like, they're very vulnerable with these families, and it's just really beautiful. And so just, yeah, proud about the work we do and incredibly grateful for everybody who's a part of it.
I mean, I love how even how you're investing your life, Megan. It's such a reflection of the story, as you said, God is writing through your life, and you risking sharing your story, the gift of who you are, who you're becoming. Now you are partnering with thousands, countless families, and making an incredible difference. And so, if anybody's still wondering if it's worth sharing your story, 100% yes, it's worth sharing your story. And I will never forget the first time you and I had a Zoom call, and it was the first time you and I met. You were telling me about Better Together before you were now in the county that I live in. And I ended our Zoom call and I was like, Megan is brilliant, brilliant. Like the concept of Better Together, it's brilliant. I had never heard anything like it before. And then having the privilege of being able to see the work you're doing in our community, and then Church of Hope, where I'm at, partnering with Better Together. I mean, I just couldn't be more proud, and being a part of the life change. When you just said those numbers, like it just brings tears to my eyes, the difference that you, the team is making. It's incredible. So if somebody wanted to learn more about Better Together, what are the best ways to connect with Better Together or to even follow your journey?
Yeah, so just our website's the best way. It's bettertogetherus.org. Um, so if you want to follow my journey, I'm not great on social media. I should be better, but I
I
am
think you're great.
I am on LinkedIn. I'm sometimes present on social media and Facebook, but that's part of, like, I've just poured my heart and just so much energy into just Better Together. And I really appreciate your kind words, Emily, because it really is this collective. It's this collective of people, like you and so many others who, believe, in the importance of the work we do and believe that we can, create a different outcome. But it started with sharing my story with you on that Zoom. I really believe, like, even God, um, that particular person who spoke to me, like I wasn't planning to share that night, and it just kind of God put in my heart, and in obedience in front of like a bunch of people, I got very vulnerable. And then that person just saying, hey, you should use your story and you should share it more. But I believe that just being obedient and sharing my story, even when it felt really uncomfortable, and it's still every time I tell people, I'm like, it's like cutting my veins open in front of people. It's still,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter how many times you share, it's still real, it's raw, um, but like God uses that obedience and sharing. And I really believe if it wasn't for that initial obedience and sharing and continue to share, God wouldn't have been blessed and inspired so many people to be a part of Better Together, and the impact and the lives of children and families across the state probably wouldn't be, um, it wouldn't have happened. So I just think that obedience, if God's calling you to share, if God's calling you to do something, like do it.
Yeah.
Um, and God can just bless that obedience in so many different ways. And um, it's just like my story and my life is just a direct result of that.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I truly mean it when I say thanks for sharing the gift of you, because it's not lost on me. It is painful each and any time you share a story that is as close to your life and your heart and your family. And it doesn't get easier, but you keep sharing because you see the importance of how you're connecting and then shining a light with other people. So that's a gift that you're sharing with us. And I thank you for it. For those who are watching or listening to Megan's story, in the show notes, we'll have the links to Better Together so you can click, easily follow. There's so many incredible stories, like everything that the team posts. It's just, if you go to the website or Instagram, you'll be there for a while. There's a lot of good stuff to read and to watch. But as we wrap up your Becoming story today, Megan, are there any final words that you would want to share with a warrior friend?
Um, just keep being you. I just think we all just have these unique journeys, and God like has this plan for each of us. And just trusting him in this plan. And I appreciate, Emily, what you're doing, and I love that you share these stories, and um just community and connections are just so important. So thanks for just shining a light on my story today, but shining a light on so many other stories. And that's the importance of just doing life together, and supporting each other. I just think is so important and so valuable. And so I am incredibly appreciative for everybody taking the time to hear my story, and I hope it was encouraging to you. And I'm also, if anybody feels connected to this, like you can reach out through Better Together, and I would be happy to connect with you further too.
Yeah. No, thank you so much. You're amazing. I love you, and I'm cheering you on big time as you're becoming who God made you to be.
Well, thank you. I feel the same way about you. This was amazing.
Thank you, Megan.